Hey there, friends and colleagues. Today what we're going to be talking about is SOPs. So SOPs stands for Standard Operating Procedures, and it's important that we have standard operating procedures in our classroom and throughout our school, because schools really are organizations. If you think about when you are hired onto a job, if you've not been in business, the first thing they do is go over all of the standard operating procedures so everybody's on the same page and you know how to do things, you understand how that company does things. And remember, we talked about climate and culture before. Climate and culture is super important so that everybody knows how they're supposed to be doing things and how things work inside the company. So your classroom is a microcosm of a company and you're the manager basically. So it's important for student agency if we have systems inside our classroom so that students know what they're supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to be doing it, and most importantly, why they're supposed to be doing it. So in this presentation, we're going to be talking about different types of SOPs, or standard operating procedures. We're also going to be talking about the difference between rules and SOPs, because sometimes they look an awful lot alike. We're also going to be talking about process SOPs, and I have a good number of examples for you to look at. All right? Okay, here we go. So the first thing I want you to think about is, what are some procedures in your classroom that your students just cannot get right? If you can think of some, then you for sure have some opportunities to create some standard operating procedures. And it's important no matter what grade level it is, whether it's K through 12. And I have to tell you, if you want to see some really good SOPs, go to a kindergarten classroom, because kindergarten teachers are really good at teaching their kids how to do things. They've got systems for everything. And kindergarten classrooms run like a well-oiled machine. So if you have the opportunity to get into a classroom, ask to see kindergarten. So with your students, and this procedure works both as an admin with the entire faculty and also as a teacher with the entire class. So this is just a recommendation. This is how I've done it in the past. I ask the teachers to list each idea on a different post-it note so that they can then organize them later on. And when they're finished, they just show me the ready signal. So the question is, write down all the procedures your students just cannot get right. And so, they can chat at their table and come up with some. If they're in teams, they might want to come up with some that are standard across their teams. As you're going through them, you might find that all of the teams have certain ones that repeat. They might become school-wide SOPs. So it can be, if you're the only one in your building doing it, you can just be the one person doing it in your classroom. But if the administration is on board and this is going to be a school-wide thing, then for sure do it school-wide. However, what you need to keep in mind is that the kids still need to have some say, so that when it's done in the classroom, you might have a discussion about like the school-wide things might be how you walk in the hallways and how you treat each other on the playground or in the lunchroom, etc., etc. But maybe leave the classroom decisions just to the classroom kids. Okay. All right. So these are some things that I just talked about. You're going to be looking for patterns that repeat or can be categorized together. You don't want to have 10,000 SOPs all over your room or all over the school, right? So there are some things that might be able to fall, into a specific category, and it's definitely advised to take a long list and categorize them so that you can create a smaller list. People can't remember 110 SOPs, right? If you have a list that is 12 long, it's probably too long. You might need to separate it into different categories and then maybe elaborate for each one of those, because people learn in chunks. They don't learn in lists of 12, right? There's a neat TEDx talk where the presenter says, think about your telephone number. I think it's John Hattie. Think about your telephone number. Do you think about your telephone number in 10 digits? No. You think about it in 3, 3, and 4. It's chunking, right? So we have to be doing the same thing with our SOPs. So it's very important that at the classroom level that you are creating your SOPs with your students, okay? All right, so let's talk about rules versus procedures. So on the left here, you can see these are class rules. Listen when others are talking, follow directions, keep hands and feet to yourself, work quietly, etc. Notice how these 6 things are completely different from one another, right? You might be able to group them, but if you're going to group them, then I would have one SOP for that type of stuff. So you might have an SOP for when you do centers, what are the expectations? And when you're doing independent work, what are the expectations? So those would be 2 different SOPs, and you might even want to get rid of class rules altogether, because if you have worked on your classroom vision and if you've worked on your code of cooperation, then you will have already covered all of these things. Okay, so let's look at the right side, our class rules. Be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, be kind to our tools, work hard and never give up. That kind of looks like a classroom vision in a way, right? How do we want to treat one another? So we're looking there at our climate there, right? How do we treat one another on a day-to-day basis? And those are the things we want to follow. So that could be worked into a classroom vision, right? And then your SOPs can really be reserved for procedures. All right, here are some process SOPs. So I'm going to blow the picture up for you so that you can see it hopefully a little bit better. Let's see. So going to the bathroom is always a classroom stopper, right? And so this is a way to let kids be more empowered and have more decision making in the process. So you need to use the bathroom? Is your teacher teaching? Yes. And then wait. Is the teacher teaching? No. And then the next question is your planner already filled out? Because apparently the kids walk up to the teacher and it's not filled out, right? So I don't always are. So if it's no, then first fill it out. And then if it's yes, then have Miss Arb sign it and sign out by the door, right? And then the last thing is return in a timely manner, right? So simple. A second grader could do this, right? Okay, over here on the right, we've got, and let me zoom in here. And sorry about the pop-up thing here. We've got, whoop, let me zoom back out and put my cursor in the right spot. Okay, for a time that she calls goal time, this looks like it's an independent time where the kids have to choose a standard that they know they need to improve on. Then they practice, okay? Then from the practice, they can go to what the teacher calls an expert. Not her necessarily, right? It's a classroom peer who has already mastered that standard. So they have to show evidence to that expert that they understand it, that they have mastered it. If the expert says not quite, then the red line shows they have to go back and practice, right? If there are no experts, then they can try to see the teacher, Mrs. Proctor. If Mrs. Proctor says you don't quite have it, then the red line shows that they have to go back and practice. So the red lines on here look like it's a no progress, right? Go back. And a green is progress. So if Miss Proctor is busy, this is an if-then statement, right? Then you have to wait. And then when it's time, you can go see Miss Proctor, and then she'll tell you either you have to go practice or you get to put a check on your chart because you've mastered it. So once you've mastered it, then you can see this loop comes all the way back up here, and you're going to choose another standard. So this is so simple and clear, right? And this is something that would be on the wall so that when a kid gets stuck, if a student is not working and I'm Mrs. Proctor, I might say, John, where are you in the goal time process chart? And it's going to jog him, right? And he's going to look at it and go, oh, I'm supposed to be X, Y, or Z, right? Okay, let me zoom back out here. This one is a different kind of process, and this is for solving a problem. And this could be any kind of problem, right? It could be a problem on the playground. It could be a problem in the classroom. But step 1 is stay calm. Step 2, tell how you feel and why. Step 3 and step 4. 4 ends with agree on a compromise. And so this looks like clearly they were having some issues with relationships, and the teacher was trying to help the kids learn how to solve it on their own. That is student agency, right? The teacher is not doing it for them. The teacher is creating the structure for students to do it on their own. Those are lifelong skills, right? All right, over here, I finished my work early, and when I blow this up, it's gonna be a little bit pixelated. Sorry about that. So I finished my work early. Do you have other work to complete? There's a yes, no, right? So it's an if then. If I do, yes, then finish it. When I'm done, then I can move over to here where it says, do you have other work to complete? No. Help one of your peers is an option. Are you interested in learning or researching about this more about this topic? No, I'm not. Then you can begin on your homework. If I am interested, then I can do research in the library or on the computer. And then my last step is I can create my own lesson on this topic. So the kids have lots of options, and it can change from day to day. Maybe today I feel like researching, maybe tomorrow I feel like helping one of my peers. And it opens up your classroom too for a really nice culture, one in which kids are helping one another. And it's not, the teacher is not always the only person you can get help with, and it's not about competition, but it's about looking out for one another. So this is a really nice example of a process that a teacher could talk kids through this, right? And keep in mind that a teacher could create this, go through it, and slap it up on the wall, but the kids don't own it. So if the teacher goes through it first and has her own copy, right, and then talks the kids through it, the kids will actually be making it, but as the manager, she has guided them to what she wanted them to come up with. And you might also be surprised, the kids might come up with ideas that you never thought of that are better than yours, so be prepared. All right, and next. So, if-then procedures. And what we were just looking at are examples of just that. And this is, what should I do when I need additional support? Okay? And it starts over here with, what am I stuck on? Can I use personal resources to solve the problem? Meaning, can I look it up on the computer? Can I look it up in my notes, etc., etc.? And then there are if no statements and what to do, and then if yes statements and what to do. Okay? So, things like my Chromebook is not turning on, right? Troubleshooting. Does it have a charge? If yes, then use it. If no, plug it in, right? So simple things that kids should know, but sometimes they just don't because we have done everything for them for so long that they haven't had to think. Okay? Here's another one. Materials procedure. This is super simple. How do I get my procedures? Now, when you look at this, teacher made or student made? Obviously teacher made, right? But if the teacher is just somebody who likes everything to be nice and neat, maybe she went through this with the kids on chart paper and then developed it on her own. So I don't want to assume that the teacher didn't have student input, but for sure you want to make sure that you do, all right? Okay, so the SOPs for procedures are empowering for students, and that is a part of student agency, right? And as we teach them these things, the students are learning how to think on their own, how to be resourceful, right? and sometimes even innovative. Maybe I'm going to come up with a completely different answer to what the teacher had, but at least I'm still trying to solve my own problems. So with the onset of technology in the classroom, we've got a completely new set of issues for kids to navigate and teachers to navigate. All right. So I want to show you. The next slide has on the left a contract. Now, a contract, in my mind, this kind of contract is punitive. I'm signing this, I'm saying I know what the rules are, and if I don't follow them, there will be consequences, right? So this is a punishment contract. It used to work. It doesn't work so much anymore because parents will run circles around you and it'll end up being the teacher's fault for whatever happened. So I'd probably avoid using these. On the right-hand side, though, we've got some SOPs for how to use the technology. Notice all 5 of them are only about technology. So this is more SOP than it is a rules sheet. So keep them in a safe place. Use 2 hands. Clean your hands before using. Use them for learning, right? Which is another way of saying all the other don'ts. Keep food away from the iPad, food and drink. So these are probably the 5 things that rules, right, that are broken the most, so the teacher has them there as reminders. Now, these clearly were made by the teacher. The teacher might have put these up before the first day of school and gone over them. So again, I would wait and I would have the kids go over it with me. You know, if you just ask the right questions, how do we stop the iPads from being broken? Or how do we stop the Chromebooks from being broken? The kids will come up with, hold it with 2 hands, put it in a safe place, right? And then, okay, so everybody's touching these devices, they're full of germs. How are we going to keep ourselves from being sick? The kids will say, clean your hands before you use them, or wash your hands after you use them. You might need to do both. You know, so if you ask the right questions, you're going to get the kids to come up with exactly what you already had. All right, here are some that were on walls in classrooms, okay? So this one on the left, clearly the teacher did them on the spot with the students, right? And and the kids all signed it to show that they agree. They were involved in it. Now, this one on the left, right off the bat, I'm thinking too many. Hold with 2 hands, hold it like a book, hold from the base. 3 of them are about holding. I'd probably combine them. And I would probably have a picture of how to hold it because that's a lot better than 3 bullets. No food or drink, appropriate sites, focus on assigned work, don't abuse privileges, 1 at a time when receiving and putting it back. So some of these are about the process of getting it and putting it back. I might separate them and keep them near the cart. And then I might have these other things divided up into how do I use that, what's the process, right, for, or procedure for independent time? What's the procedure for full class time? What's the procedure for stations? Because it helps kids to focus on exactly where I am right now, what am I supposed to be doing? All right, this one on the right, these are clearly problems that a teacher had. This isn't her first round, right, with devices. Don't delete anyone's profile. That was happening a lot with iPads in the past. You could also do it easily on a Chromebook. Log out when you're done. We were having kids saving their work into everybody but their own Google Drive or iPad. Don't go on VPNs, clearly. This is probably high school. Respect Chromebooks, keys. For some reason, the kids pick the keys off, right? And then stay on task. So these are more focused on technology for sure. So they could certainly be called SOPs. This is how we behave, right? But a lot of the times with SOPs, we want to avoid using don'ts. And if you're using your code of cooperation, you can connect back to how we treat one another, how we treat the devices. Is this what we want for a good learning environment, right? Those kinds of things. All right, so let's look at some SOPs and decide what we like or don't like about them. Okay, so this one right here on the right, way too many words, right? Way too many words. Teacher created or kid created, clearly teacher created, right? You could probably just have the headings here: clean hands, no liquids, be gentle, do not carry, follow directions, sleep it, warning. Too detailed, right? Way too detailed. Now, these are all about technology, right? So yes, they are SOPs, but it's just too much. All right, let's look at the next set. On the left here, and I'm going to zoom in, these are for iPads. How to hold it, when you're not using it, what to do. And just so you know, the second bullet, this is what teachers sometimes call listening mode. And the teacher will just call out listening mode, and the kids know to turn their iPad face down or to close their Chromebook. And sometimes with the Chromebook, you just want to almost close it, because sometimes it automatically logs them out when they close it, and that's a safety feature. Volume off or use headphones, treated carefully, etc. So this one is very neat, which looks like it wasn't done under pressure, although some people can do that, right? This one might have been done with students, but it looks like it was probably done by the teacher. So of course you want to have these in mind and then ask the questions to get the kids to give you the answer that you want to put on there. Okay? All right, over here on this one clearly was done by the teacher. Stay at your desk, always sign out, be sure to let the teacher know if there's a problem, no food or drink. Yeah, this is everything under the sun. So again, I would probably lessen these. I would also make sure that the kids are involved. And depending on the age, I might have some pictures on here as well. Okay. Here's a different one, iPads, rules and responsibilities. This is about getting an iPad pass. So this one's not one-to-one. Work at a table, keep iPads off the floor, use two hands and walk, apps on first screen only, meaning don't swipe because the most often used ones are on the first screen. Use clean hands, make a mistake, no worries. This is the part I love. Come see Mrs. Van Horn ASAP, right? When kids are afraid they're going to get into trouble, so they won't tell you what's wrong. You need to have a culture where kids can come to you when something goes wrong. Let them know they're not going to be responsible. They need to report. When you're done, what they need to do. Okay? This one over here looks like, so it's third grade, we can tell. And this is the iPad SOPs before they use it, while they're using it, and after they use it. These are clearly just all about keeping the device safe. So this isn't really about student behaviors as much as being independent, right? This is more about saving the devices and the longevity. Not a bad thing, right? I would just want more than just this. All right. Okay, this is a middle school, and this was for Chromebooks, for those of you who are Chromebooks and you'd like to see some SOPs for that. This one might have been done with the kids, right? It's not signed by the kids, so we don't know, but carry the Chromebook with two hands if you have to walk with it. So in other words, try to stay in your seat. Don't eat or drink. Stay on the assignment you've been given. Don't stick paper or things inside and close it down. Don't toss the Chromebook. Keep it closed while walking. Keep your passwords private. Don't put the Chromebook in the chair. Leave the keyboard alone. Don't pluck the keys off. Be a good digital citizen. So I probably would separate this digital citizenship ones into a separate poster, because these are, there are too many, first of all, and they are varied. So I might have a Chromebook operating procedure and then a digital citizen operating procedure, and then I would probably have, for the different tasks and no appropriate sites, I would probably break that off. That could come under being a good digital citizenship, but I also would put it under independent work. What does that look like, sound like? Whole class, what does that look like, sound like? Stations, what does it look like, sound like? So I would definitely break this one down. Okay, this might not apply to you, but I've not seen a classroom with a cart that didn't need some of these recommendations. Teachers by nature are neat and they don't like a mess. And the carts make them crazy because they didn't have a system. So it's important that you have a system for keeping everything organized. It's also important that you have a system so you can track loss, because schools are responsible to track everything that goes in and out of the school. So keep that in mind up front. Now, this might be you at that moment when you are voluntold that you are now in charge of all the devices in the entire school. You might be the media specialist, you might be a technology specialist, you might be an admin who's new, so they give that to you. So here's what you need to know. I'm just going to give you some hard-learned lessons. And these will work for school-wide and for your own classroom cart. So if you have one cart because you did a donor's choose and it's all yours, I highly recommend you try some of these things. If these things are being doled out and there is no system, the problem with going and telling someone they might want to have a system is that you're going to volunteer yourself to do it. So you have to tread carefully, but it is definitely going to save a lot of trouble in the end. So here's my first recommendation. A silver or a white Sharpie for labeling black carts and black devices. You can also put masking tape down on a black cart and then write with a black Sharpie if that's what you already have. Now here's what the carts usually look like in advance, right? This one has no label on it. This is how it was given to a teacher. Notice, I'm going to blow it up. All of the charging cords are on top. So basically that's for the teacher to figure out. Some of the charging cords in the top row are already fished through. The devices are there. It's a little bit hard to see. Notice nothing is labeled. It's just black on black on black. I don't know about your eyes, but my eyes cannot differentiate. I can barely even see if the device is in the cart, right? So we don't have time to be counting devices every single day. And before and after every single period if you're middle and high school. So here's my first recommendation. Label every cart with a letter. Start with A, you get 26 letters. If you have more than 26 teachers or carts, then you're going to start with double letters, AA, AB, AC. Put the label on there and then cover it with clear packing tape. Second recommendation, label each shelf slot with the cart letter and the number of the device. So this is cart A, and you can see this is going all the way up past A25. All right, so you can see these numbered slots. The reason we want to make them so clear is so that the students can be empowered to take care of the cart themselves. You also want to make sure that you assign one device per student per period. So if my name starts with a Z, then I'm going to be towards the A30 numbers. If my last name starts with an A, I'm going to be 1 through 3, right? So it's very hard to track if there is damage to a device, who did it, if you don't have specific kids assigned to specific devices. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you're going to use that white or silver Sharpie to label the device and also to label the charging cord. For some reason, kids don't pay attention to charging cords. They just grab one, and the one on the left is now charging the one on the right, and it's just a hot mess. So tape them to the top if you have to, put clips. I've seen people do zip ties across the top, and it kind of looks like a waterfall. And then they fished the cords through, and so that they just hang there for the kids to just plug right in quickly. So having a system is super important, right? And the teachers will come up with the best ways to do it. So please have opportunities at faculty meetings to share out good ideas, right? Okay, the next one is for the devices. You're not only going to label them on the side so that you can see them when they're lined up, that they're all there and they're all in the right spot, but you also want to label them on top so that as kids are using them, you can see who's got which device and if they have the right device. Also, the Sharpie comes off with body oils, and the kids rub them all the time. So cover the Sharpie on the top of the device with clear packing tape also. Okay, here's an example of devices that are numbered across the top. The cords are not numbered, so I still would recommend that. And then right here, they used a masking tape to renumber the slots. This was because this particular cart holds 36 devices, and also because the devices change inside this school, the number of devices. So as class sizes change, the teacher can only have one per student. They don't have enough to have like a cart of 30, and if you have 25, you have 5 just sitting there doing nothing. So the masking tape is super, super helpful because you can modify it. All right. And the black Sharpie works well on white carts, and masking tape I just told you about. So systems rock. It is important for you to have a system. If your school doesn't have a system and you have to come up with your own, go on Pinterest. There are a gazillion ideas, creative ideas by teachers. So over here, these are dishes racks, right? Drying racks for dishes, where they have the Chromebooks slotted in there. It would work the same with iPads. And they've somehow rigged the charging cords. What I'm not seeing is identification. So for me, I would want everything to be numbered in order, so very quickly I can say, oh, all 25 are there. Here on the right, a different kind of dish rack, and they put charging sticks right there in the device. So when it's full, there are going to be a lot of these cords, and it's going to get messy. So just keep trying to figure something out. All right. Okay, so what we're going to have as your activity is for you to go out on the internet and find a system that will work for you. If you currently have a system, you can take a picture of it if you have access to it, or you can describe it. And we're going to have you evaluate the system. How well does it work?